Good evening. Welcome to this public forum of the Board of Education to hear opinions and input from students, families, employees, and community members. Tonight's forum is being broadcast live on AACPS TV, which can be found on Channel 96 on Comcast and Broadstripe and Channel 36 on Verizon. High definition broadcast can be seen on Channel 996 on Comcast, Channel 496 on Broadstripe, and Channel 1961 on Verizon. As a reminder, to those who are here with us in person, guests are expected to wear their masks while visiting the Carol S. Parham building. And thank you for joining us. Now for our process. Speakers will be allotted 2 minutes each. You may not allocate your time to others. The light in front of me will flash yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. It will turn red and a tone will sound when your time is up. I will call individuals in groups of 5. Please come forward and have a seat at the witness tables while you wait your turn to speak. The board asks that comments remain civil and appropriate for the various audiences that may be watching or viewing this forum. Student-specific and personnel matters are confidential and cannot be discussed in this forum. If you are here with a group wanting to speak on the same subject, I ask that you appoint a spokesperson to deliver testimony. Other members of the group are welcome to stand while testimony is given. It is not the board's general practice to engage in question and answer session with speakers. For the record, please give your name before speaking. Handouts should be given to the board assistant. And so let's begin. I'm going to call up the first 5 people. Julia Laws, Nicole Bates, Corinne Emerson, Latika Hicks, and Lauren Thornton.
Good evening. I'm Julia Laws, a fed up AACPS parent. Most of what I have written here is actually for Dr. Arlotto because I realized that on numerous occasions, meeting after meeting, I watch angry parents, as they call us, come before you and take out their frustrations on things that are actually under his purview. That saddens me because a lot of the parents don't realize what job it is that the board has and what job Dr. Arlotto has. A lot of the frustrations that you hear, you obviously know what pertains to you and what does not. Bright space is a nightmare. Obviously, that is Dr. Arlotto's purview. However, the funding for that is yours. The testing and vaccination mandate or test or vax mandate, that obviously falls under Dr. Arlotto's purview. However, the funding for whatever outside company has been hired to do that falls under the Board of Education. My daughter was going to speak tonight, but she had a conflict with school and we weren't sure if she was going to make it. But some of the things that she wanted to point out was the emphasis that is provided during these meetings that say that, you know, student wellness is at the forefront of AACPS priority list is not in fact true. They do not feel that their wellness is being put forward. And she also feels that the member that is here to represent her often, well, not often, but has stated that she will never go against Dr. Arlotto. We'd like to make it clear that Dr. Arlotto does not have a vote here on this board. And sometimes going against Dr. Arlotto is what needs to happen in order to represent the people that have elected you. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you Nicole Bates?
That would be me with
Yeah.
my traveling crew here.
Yeah.
All right. What lights am I looking for again? I'm sorry.
There's a light in front of me. I think you can see it. but-
I can in
Yeah.
fact see it, I think. All right.
And
All right.
you may
So
begin.
I am Nicole Bates. I am a self-contained teacher at Mead Middle School. I began teaching 11 years ago. Doesn't seem like that many, but when I started, they said, this is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. And I was like, nah, they're right. There is no doubt that it was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my entire life. My first job was a functional life skills teacher at MacArthur Middle. For those who don't know, functional life skills is for students who are pursuing their high school certificate of completion. And in that job, you do all sorts of awesome things and some things that you might not expect a teacher to be doing. I worked on feeding skills. I worked on helping kids get dressed, but I also worked on behavior. And man, did I work on behavior. I lost a lot of plannings and a lot of lunches and a lot of other things with some of my students who really just needed me and no one else would do. And at the end of that, I said, this is it. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. Ha, joke's on me. March 2021 hit. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm a self-contained teacher, which means I have the best of both worlds. I teach general ed curriculum to students who really need special ed services in a small setting with a lot of specialization for them. I am their teacher, I'm their person. And in that, I get to see everything. Bella, please. I get to see everything. I see the general ed, I see the special ed, and what I see concerns me. We're drowning in special ed. It hurts me to tell you how much we're drowning. Every day it's a new task. Oh,
You can summarize.
okay. It's a new task. We need somebody to send us a lifeboat, and we need it now. I don't know how. I don't know when. I hope that we can all collaborate to figure out how, because people are leaving and they're leaving rapidly. I hear one special educator at every school is missing. This isn't good for our kids. It's not good for our families. And it's not going to be good for special ed. So I
Thank you,
came
Ms.
to you
Bates.
today to please help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know they are. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Is Corinne Emerson here? Let me see. Latika Hicks.
All right, good evening. I recently learned about an LGBTQ plus African American woman who Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg credited with the idea that laid the foundation for the argument in the Reed versus Reed case, where the highest court ruled for the first time that a sex-based classification law was unconstitutional. Her name was Dr. Paulie Murray. Her contribution opened the door to opportunities that women were previously denied, a decision that may have resulted in me being here today testifying before a predominantly female Board of Education. Why don't we all know Dr. Murray's name? She was a Marylander. She was born in Baltimore. Who decided that her story, like so many others, should be excluded? As a parent, I want my child to have an education that encourages them to explore who we are, where we came from, and what is possible. Many of you are a parent just like me. Our children deserve accurate history lessons, helping them become the critical thinkers we need. Knowing about our history, the complete history, benefits us all. That includes white children. Learning of the atrocities committed on this land to Native Americans, African Americans, and other people is hurtful. Yes, it may be easier to deny or avoid those truths, but that is never how we overcome them. Like most parents, when my children do something wrong, I ask them to tell me the truth because I can help them when I know the full story. We never want our children to lie to us, either directly or through omission. Therefore, we should not lie to them. Do not allow certain politicians who have denied our classroom resources and demanded sacrifices of our teachers to stoke fears about our schools and to try to dictate what teachers say and block kids from learning our shared stories. Don't fall for their lies. They are only trying to divide us to distract us from coming together to demand what we need for every child to succeed. I am asking that this board support parents and support your children, white children, Black children, all children, by allowing them to have the full history. Just like Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg was brilliant enough to listen to Dr. Paulie, I ask that you heed the guidance and advice of the experts, the AACPS staff of experts you had here during your October 18th board workshop on teaching civics and social issues topics. They addressed the concerns and told us how they developed and select age-appropriate and accurate history lessons, curriculum, and materials that encompasses all of the necessary information to help our
Thank you,
children be
Ms. Hicks.
successful. Do not let fear rob your children and mine of the information they deserve. Thank you.
Lauren Thornton.
I'm here this evening to press my continued concern about masks, and more so kids with IEPs, specifically kids with speech issues. Since you are not allowing us to speak on any one individual, I will speak about this as a whole group. It is so important for kids in speech therapy to see other people's lips and have their teachers and peers see their lips and movements of the mouth and tongue. I do not mean that just in their 30-minute sessions with the speech therapist that they need this, but all of the time. The board has received exemption forms and explanations from doctors such as Johns Hopkins, and yet still deny mask exemptions. Unless you have a child in speech therapy, and unless you have witnessed the regression some of these kids have gone through since March of 2020, you have no idea. You have no idea what impact, or you have no idea the impact virtual learning and masks have had on them. You are not allowing them to progress with the continued mask mandate. Before anyone says or thinks that clear masks should do the trick, you are wrong. First of all, clear masks are plastic, not cloth. So what idiot would be okay with keeping plastic over their child's nose and mouth all day long? Secondly, kids that have tried them, they fog up and it defeats the purpose anyway. I highly disagree with forcing of masks. The board continues to think masks are a one-size-fits-all and refuses to consider individual situations, and you are failing those kids. I also want to throw in here before I'm done that if you think eventually you are going to mandate vaccines or weekly testing for kids of all ages, you are highly mistaken. We will not allow that. Parents like myself will not allow that. Kids will be pulled by the masses, and you'll have a very large group of angry people to deal with. The board has no business telling parents what to inject in their children. You are not medical professionals, so I ask and urge you to stay in your lane.
Ms. Emerson.
Good evening. My name is, sorry, but speech problem. My name is Corinne Emerson. I'm not here tonight to talk about masks. I'm not here tonight to talk about CRT. I'm not even here tonight to talk about the board's contract with teachers, even though I quit. I'm here to talk about reading. My son is second grader at Crofton Elementary School. He was in kindergarten when the school was closed because of COVID, and he had a reading delay. It took us 18 months to get our child the appropriate reading interventions. In 2019, the state legislature passed the Ready to Read Act. This act was modified, the COMAR was modified this summer by the State Board of Education to expand the reading screening requirements to kindergarten through third grade. I was very upset to find out 2 weeks ago that we were not by default releasing test scores to families. Instead, the school system interpreted that we needed to formally request to see our children's scores. I would hope that the school system would spend at least as much time as it has trying to stonewall families as it will be implementing the Ready to Read Act with fidelity this year. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, check that one off. Next, we have Carrie Gillespie, Jenny Coons, Tara Beth, Stephen Waddy, and Ruth Lowery. And I apologize if I mispronounced the name.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Gillespie. I am a mama bear of 4 amazing children, all of whom suffer from the mental health impacts of the draconian and unnecessary measures taken upon children by this Board of Education in the name of public health and safety this past year. I'm here this evening to speak on parental choice, to advocate for all AACPS parents, and most importantly, our children and our right as Americans and parents to make decisions that are best for ourselves and our children. And the obligation and duty of this board and the superintendent to listen to and elevate above every other voice in your ears, the voice of parents. Over 78% of all AACPS parents wanted their children to return to school in some capacity when you surveyed us in the fall of 2020. Yet AACPS ignored these wishes and kept schools closed until late in the spring. This impacted so many families negatively that the number of families choosing to pull their students from AACPS schools to homeschool them more than tripled last school year. This phenomenon was not limited to Anne Arundel County schools. The state of Maryland lost 27,000 children to homeschooling. Why did this occur? Simple, because we, the parents, have been awakened to the politics at play on our boards and in our schools, and we are tired of not having a say and being ignored. Our phone calls and emails to Dr. Arlotto and the majority of our so-called representatives on this board are mostly not just ignored, but we are often belittled, ridiculed, and admonished. Governor Hogan dropped the mask mandate in the state on May 15th, yet here we are almost 6 months later, and our children are still forced to wear unsanitary and useless face coverings for 8 hours a day or more. We parents and students implored this board to allow homecoming dances a few weeks ago, yet you ignored our pleas. Our children are not suffering and dying largely from COVID-19, but rather from mental health issues, and tragically even suicide in this district because of your actions. Stop robbing our children of their childhoods and parents from the right to choose what's best for their mental health. And finally, if you mandate the experimental COVID-19 vaccine for all AACPS students, you will see a withdrawing of students and a backlash from parents the likes of which you've never seen. We will come for your jobs, fire you, and elect somebody who will represent parents and our rights to choose what is best for our children.
Thank you.
Remember, you work for us. Thank you.
My name is Jenny Coons. I'm a mom of 3 in our school system. I'm here mostly to speak on the vaccine due to the fact that during one of the previous board meetings, Dr. K had mentioned that he was aiming towards that route. Also in the responsibility of showing that it's not misinformation when it comes from a source such as FDA, CDC, all of these organizations that are posting the information, which I have given in a handout with plenty of references for what I have to say. The immunizations and the FDA advisory committee meetings, I don't know if anybody has looked into that, but there's a lot of valuable information on there. Come to find out that the booster shots actually stem from the vaccine efficacy not being what it was. So they looked at studies from the Israeli healthcare workers that were showing breakthrough cases that actually caused an outbreak of COVID. So with that being said, you kind of have to wonder how many booster shots are people going to be required to get in the first place. Children, as we know, are not as susceptible to severe cases of COVID-19. It's the same comorbidities that actually adults have that have the severe cases. Out of the deaths of children, it's very minuscule. In the state of Maryland, they're up to 13 in accordance to the research that I have shown in there. The other thing that I would like to say is on November 8th, the American Rescue Plan, there was a letter sent out, and I have also included that in all of my information. There's money tied to this. that is being given to the state of Maryland in around $2 billion towards doing the masking, the tracing, vaccines come into that as well. And I just ask you to really think about that with the price tag on our children's heads, because we don't know what is going to happen from this vaccine. We have no idea what is going to stem from this 5 to 10 years from now. Myocarditis is tissue death. If you want that of your child, some of us do, some of us don't want to get the vaccine for our kids. That should be a parent choice, not a health choice made by the Board of Ed or the health department in and of itself. If you want it for your child because you're scared of the illness, that's fine, but don't force it on everybody else.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is Tara Beth here? Stephen Waddy?
Hello, my name is Stephen Waddy. I live in Severn, Maryland, 7968 Heathermiss Drive. Hello, Madam Chair and members. I have children in the Old Mill cluster. And first, I'm here to say that I support mask wearing, vaccination. I took my own daughter to get vaccinated when she was around 2 years old, and she's, functioning well. Virtual schooling is also something I support. I wish we had more virtual schooling. And all of the other necessary supports for us to overcome the pandemic that is raging in our schools and communities, killed over 750 people in Anne Arundel County alone. Second, I'm here to address the charter school system. Much of the discussion around the privatization of public school administration is around, quote unquote, helping Black and brown students and parents. A charter school is usually promoted as a solution to a problem regarding the academic success of minority students. However, the solution of privatization in this country, and even as we've seen in this county with busing, is causing greater problems. In Maryland, thankfully, we have the strongest charter school law in the nation, according to publiccharters.org. That's an organization that supports public charters. And this means that poorly managed schools, similar to poorly managed bus companies, are not given funds to run autonomously without any checks and balances on them. A recent charter school supporter wrote a letter to the Baltimore Sun on November 3rd, already seeking to grab at some of the federal recovery funds recently approved for Baltimore City. And so we've seen public charter school advocates receive funds, and public charter schools have also received funds already from the previous pandemic funds on the federal level. And the NAACP, I'm not here on behalf of the NAACP, but I just wanted to read their statement that charter schools were created with more flexibility because they were expected to innovate and infuse new ideas and creativity into the traditional public school system. However, this aspect of the promise never materialized. And I thank you all for your time.
Hello, my name is Ruth Lowery. I am a 15-year Navy veteran. My husband and I moved our family here because we love the area. We thought we were entering an excellent school system. Come to find out, we were in one of the most radical school systems in America. My husband and I took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States against enemies foreign and domestic. In the last 2 years, I've seen more threats against our Constitution and our own citizens than any time in my life. Our Constitution codifies our God-given natural rights to protection under the law. For 245 years, we have abided by the idea that all men, I say it as all humans, are created equal and have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, we as a general public are under attack by ideas and policies that are contradictory not only to the Constitution I swore to protect, but to our natural, unalienable rights to live as we see fit, to choose how our kids are educated and medicated, to work and provide for our families without coercion, and to exercise our freedom of speech to criticize our elected officials without fear of reprisal from our own government. The things you are teaching under critical race theory are antithetical to what made our nation great. I believe in equal opportunity, not forced equal outcome. I believe the USA is a force for good, not irredeemably racist as our schools are teaching. I believe hard work and good personal choices determine our individual futures, not the color of my skin or my gender, none of which I can control or change. I believe we were endowed our equal rights by our Creator and that our governments are instituted to protect these rights by consent of the governed. CRT, Marxism, is eroding the basic principles by saying my rights come from the government and that any coercion, censorship, and cancel culture is justifiable to ensure equity of outcome, determined by whatever the tyrants say that happens to be. This is not only playing out in the form of CRT, but also with unconstitutional COVID mandates. Segregation seems to be the name of the game in Anne Arundel County. Segregate by race, gender, political viewpoint, and vax status. COVID is not a threat to our kids, and our kids are not a threat to you or each other. We all know this now, and we know we continue to be lied to. End the masking, end the ridiculous quarantines for all. Stay home if you have symptoms. It's easy. End mass testing, end vaccine mandates, don't institute vaccine mandates to participate fully in our free society and our schools.
Thank you.
Do not fear, be bold.
Claudia Chang, Susan Hobbs, Chelsea Treadwell, Mary Gallagher, Christina Corona.
Good evening, board members. My name is Claudia Chang. I'm a parent of 3 Anne Arundel County students and 1 graduate class of 2017. I'm also the governing board president of Chesapeake Science Point Public Charter School. I've learned over the past 10 years that many people, from parents even up to our local politicians, are not familiar with charter schools when it comes to the curriculum, funding, the petition process, and more, so I really appreciate your session tonight. I was very happy to see this topic in your workshop and available to all of you. I'm here on behalf of Chesapeake Lighthouse Foundation, our charter operator, to say that we are happy to share our insight on the logistics to be a successful charter with anyone who's interested. Please feel comfortable. To us, we'd be happy to meet anytime. At CSP, we're very proud of our achievements, such as our MCAP scores, our math teams, science Olympiad teams, national winning bridge building teams, robotics wins, and also our 5-star rating. It's a testament to our hard work. But the fact is this: we couldn't achieve all of those things without our partnership with Anne Arundel County Public Schools, so we appreciate that. As a parent, your support and collaboration means the world to me. Some of you have visited us at CSP and CLF, and if you haven't, then you probably have an invitation from me somewhere in your inbox. I know that the past year has been very busy and overwhelming for you all. I appreciate your work, late nights, tough decision-making. I know it hasn't been easy. Thank you again for having this session on the topic. Have a good night.
Thank you. I'm sorry, is Susan Hobbs here? Chelsea Treadwell.
Hello, I'm the parent of 2 elementary students at AACPS, but I'm here to speak in support of the teachers. I come from a family of teachers: my grandmother, my mother, my sister, my aunt, and my uncle. I'm breaking protocol. My mother was a teacher for more than 35 years, and she says the day she knew she was done was the day a student called her just the effing librarian. She said it wasn't that one kid said it, it was that it reflected the decreasing respect and appreciation she was feeling from teachers, staff, and parents over many, many years. It was the final kicker. The other piece was that she wasn't the librarian. She was filling in for the librarian. She was filling in for an absence that the school couldn't fill itself. This was more than 10 years ago in a different district, but it feels really relevant right now. A lack of respect can break somebody. It can break a teacher. And things I don't think are much better here now. I don't hear the teachers complain. They don't complain to me. They're nothing but professional. But the pay scale then, where my mother was higher than the pay scale is here now at AACPS. They mostly had subs. We had buses that ran. There were no missed pay steps. There was no COVID health concerns. There was no hybrid teaching. And that was before they were in rooms of 20 and 30 kids who had suffered a variety of collective and individual trauma for the past 2 years. My kids are in elementary school, and the teachers never complained to me, but I'm aware of enough to be worried. I know how hard the teachers work. I know what the kind of curveballs the kids throw them. I know subs are hard to come by and what it means when they have to cover for them. I can guess what the kids are like when they show up after the buses didn't come and they roll in hot off their parents' stress. I know how much my teachers love their students, or well, that too, but my kids love their teachers. When something good happens in our house, it's like me, Grammy, and Mr. So-and-so are the people we've got to tell their teachers. On a personal level, I need these teachers for 10 years. On a societal level, we need them forever. We cannot afford for this to be the year that breaks more teachers. I'm asking all of you and AACPS to remember that teachers are the heart and soul of the district, and more than anything else that happens in the classroom, their skills, their experience, and their engagement is the most important things to our children.
Thank you. Mary Gallagher.
Hi, my name is Mary Grace Gallagher, and I'm the PTSA president at Annapolis High School. First, I would like to thank Dr. Arlotto for implementing the mask mandate. I had pessimistically expected this year to be a series of rolling shutdowns, and thanks to masks and vaccines, we have avoided the worst of that. And I and all the vulnerable people whose lives my family intersects with appreciate that. But as I know you are aware, there has been another series of rolling calamities that have taken us to various brinks at Annapolis High School. The buses, the violence, the overcrowding, the death of a beloved teacher, and now the shutdown of water fountains due to lead contamination. I realize you have only so much control over many of these things. So I will only take you to task on this. Please, please, please take care of our teachers. Our teachers are doing so much. Just last week, we had our school social workers speak after hours to our PTSA about the restorative justice work our teachers are doing, work that falls on top of all their other duties and requires, like all their duties, patience and sensitivity. Days later, I saw our teachers from Phoenix Academy and Annapolis High show up after hours to a Healing Through the Arts program. I've had long, thoughtful responses from our son's teachers about how to help him get up to speed after a difficult 2020. I've seen teachers volunteer at fundraisers for the school's extracurricular clubs, and I've seen them all get a little better at freaking Brightspace. I've learned about the heroic, quietly done work of those who put their bodies in between fighting students in the hallways and save us all from the worst kind of grief that violence can bring. Please work with our overburdened educators to make sure they don't leave AACPS for better conditions. Further teacher exodus threatens all of our tenuous learning communities and brings us all to the brink.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christina Corona. I've taught here for 20 years. I'm glad to be teaching again in person, having face-to-face discussions with students. I have great students. That's why I continue to teach here, for the students. However, when I think about how my colleagues and I are treated, I do question my decision. Year after year, the system exploits us. I don't disagree that things like professional development, posting assignments online, and yes, even evening activities are important. Yet, as always, it's just expected that we do more and more with less and less time and no additional compensation. I want to believe that you actually care about us as we toil under increasingly demanding workloads. But just telling us how awesome we are isn't enough. Telling us to practice self-care when your decisions are causing us to suffer emotionally and financially is laughable. And what's the result? You're losing educators knowing there's no one to replace us. Meanwhile, those remaining feel unsupported and devalued. Many are cynical and jaded. That's why Dr. Arlotto's recent recommendation for more early dismissals was met with anger by many. How can the county claim to care about our well-being when the primary issue is that our backsteps and salary increases are right now being held hostage in order to squeeze out even more from us? You say this is such a huge financial package that we owe it to you to give even more. No, this is money that's been owed to us. The size just shows how far behind loyal educators were for far too long. And it doesn't help those at the top who've been virtually stagnant for years. For the rest, it's just the bare minimum. If you decided right now to settle our contract, you could start to convince us that you do care, because the trust is broken and a few early release days is not enough. If anything, it sows even more resentment by the disconnect between the rhetoric and educators' daily reality. I urge you, settle this contract now. Enough is enough.
Thank you. Chuck Hurley, Peggy Williams, Joyce Toll, Candace Pledger, Cynthia Bolin, Emmanuel Carr, John Jason, Chuck Hurley.
Okay, can I speak from here?
You sure can.
Great, thank you.
Is that coming through? Yeah.
I'm Chuck Hurley, live in Annapolis, grandkids at Broadneck who are getting a great education. I come here more in sadness than anything else. I see storm clouds come to school boards across the country, trying to make education a political football for partisan gain. I know a little bit about political football. A long time ago, I worked for a Republican governor, state speaker, mayor, member of Congress. I'll tell you how old I am. They didn't hate anybody. When the Republican Party started playing the race card, I had to get out. There's a place for partisan politics, and education is not it. There are some who believe that an honest discussion of our racial history somehow diminishes the greatness of our country. I couldn't disagree more. Acknowledging our past mistakes and rectifying them makes us an even greater country. I'm a member of World Class Grads Maryland. We believe that every, and that means every child, deserves a world-class education and a bright future. We urge you to keep your eyes on the prize of full implementation of the Kirwan Blueprint and not be distracted by partisan politics. These are my views, and I welcome the views of people who disagree with me, and I also was a Navy veteran. Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy Williams.
Thank you, members of the board. I'd like AACPS to stop curriculums focusing on social justice and dividing students by skin color. I've seen several quotes by Dr. Arlotto, and I can provide them if you'd like. One of which is, our executive team will study Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility, why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism, unquote. Robin DiAngelo, the white apologist whose corporate training includes ideas like America is overrun with racism and white people should apologize for their privilege and try to be less white. She sounds pretty racist to me. And he's having staff read her book. I keep hearing in these meetings that AACPS does not teach CRT. This is just not true. I can give several examples where Dr. Arlotto said himself that these ideas are in the curriculum. I don't care what you call it, CRT or social emotional learning. If AACPS teaches that children born white are oppressors and are guilty of having white privilege and children born black will be oppressed by white children, you're teaching CRT. Please stop doing that. You're teaching racism and divisiveness and pushing social justice on our kids. Stick to math, science, reading, and writing. Our kids should be taught that America is a place where anyone can excel no matter the color of their skin. And speaking of racism, Dr. Arlotto said, as a school system, we need to and will embrace the Black Lives Matter movement openly. Maybe his opinion has changed since he said that, I don't know. But across the top of the board's webpage is a banner in support of BLM, a murdering, racist hate group who caused billions of dollars in damage across the country in 2020. Why is no one talking about that? I really wish the board would take that banner down. Our schools are not the place for these political proclamations. Lastly, about that earlier board meeting where security guards and plenty of cameras were present to portray parents as physically threatening, some of us can't help but think parents were portrayed this way intentionally by the board ahead of the subsequent threat that came via the National School Board Association and from AG Merrick Garland. We're not intimidated. We will keep coming back. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't keep track of what names didn't come out. Or is Cynthia Bolin next? I think.
I lost track of where to.
Good evening, Board of Education members and Dr. Arlotto. My name is Cynthia Bolin, and I have two children who attend Hillsmere Elementary School. I come here today to speak on behalf of the amazing educators of this county. I've had children in AACPS for 5 years, and over the course of those 5 years, my children have had the privilege of being taught by teachers who are smart, hardworking, creative professionals. They not only work with my children during the day, I see the results of all the hours they put in outside of their school day. It's not unusual to see stamps on grades and emails that mean my child's teacher was working well outside of their contract hours. Speaking of contract hours, it is unforgivable to me that these educators continue to work without a contract. These are people who have put in countless hours of work during an unbelievably difficult time. They figured out how to teach my kindergartner to read via a laptop on a Google Meet, and that's nothing short of magic. They stick with our kids despite being given very little respect by the folks in this building. Please give them what they deserve by agreeing to a contract, giving them their missed steps that have cost my own family tens of thousands of dollars over the years, without any additional demands on their time. We already know how short we are on folks to fill the positions in our schools. Please resolve this before we have an outright emergency. The county council has already approved this money, so stop withholding it from the staff it belongs to. Finally, I'd like to express my dismay at the use of our county communication systems to send politically motivated messages to parents. The message sent out about the teacher contracts by the board president and Dr. Arlotto was unprofessional and inappropriate. AACPS has access to my contact information to communicate emergency information and pertinent school operation information. Please do not ever use my private information to send a thinly veiled teacher bashing memo. It's disruptive, disrespectful, and a misuse of communication systems. Please show our educators that they mean as much to you as they do to us. And Black Lives Matter.
Thank you. Emmanuel.
Good evening. My name is Emmanuel Carr. I teach French at Glen Burnie High School, and I'm a member of TAG's Board of Directors. However, today I'm speaking as an individual. As I've previously shared with most, I'm from France, where I was a national board-certified English teacher. I've been teaching for 17 years, 12 in America, 7 for ACPS. Ever since I started my journey as a teacher, my only goal has been to be the best teacher I could be for my students. I've never been hesitant to do more to be better. As most educators, I complied to what I was asked to do when the whole country had to shut down because of the pandemic. I worked harder than ever during e-learning, then again while we were virtual because I wanted to be there for my students. But this year is just too much. I'm overwhelmed. I'm exhausted. The board took me to a place I didn't want to be at. I'm dragging my feet in the morning. I'm starting to not enjoy it anymore, and I love my students. I'm struggling to find lessons that will engage students while I'm being criticized for just doing that. I'm spending time writing lessons during my off-duty hours because I don't have enough time during my planning period to complete all that is asked of me. I have 4 different levels, meaning I have to do lesson planning for all 4 levels, which takes approximately 2 hours per lesson per level at a maximum of 2 lessons per week, at a minimum of 2 lessons per week. That brings me to about 16 hours of lesson planning. Of course, this does not include contact forms, meetings, grading, etc. If I were to only work during my duty hours, I would not get much done. And if I were, it would not be at the level that I'm expected to deliver. However, most seem to think that and act like nothing ever happened. Things cannot continue like nothing happened. Our students have missed 18 months of schooling, socialization. We have to remember the trauma that we all went and are still going through. This is not okay to assume we are back to normal or to a new normal because there is no normality in anything. We are still recovering from a pandemic. While I appreciate that you are more about mental wellness and everything, please think about us. I'm missing a lot of things, but I'm going to sure send it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. John Jason?
So I should see a light and start people. Nope, looks like I can talk now.
Yep.
Hello, my name is John Jason, and I help represent the local community group, One Pasadena A Race. I'm addressing racism in our community. And I would like to start off by saying Black Lives Matter. I come before the Board of Education tonight to discuss events at Chesapeake High School on October 20th, 2021, during Unity or Flag Day. On that day, a small but vocal group of students decided to regale themselves in political paraphernalia representing a particular political entity. And they went up and down the halls in a gang, and they hurled racial and other slurs at some of the other students. There were verbal altercations, and there may have been a fight or two that broke out. These same students, when they were asked to remove their political attire, They smuggled their paraphernalia into the pep rally, where they started chants of F word Joe Biden. Other students tried to shut them down, and they were silenced by the teachers. There was no interdiction of these behaviors by the school staff, teachers, or administration. There were reports that there was bullying going on between these students and other students. There are parents who are afraid. There are students who are taking countermeasures as we speak. The Pasadena community is divided. The school is divided. Everyone is divided. Fingers are pointing every which way, and people are upset. And I go back to what Anne Arundel County Schools is supposed to believe. All means all. No, it didn't. Not at CHS, not on October 20th, to any racial minority student. Why? All means all. No, it didn't mean that to any LGBTQ plus student at CHS on that day. Why? All means all. No, it didn't. Not that day, not at CHS, and it doesn't today. Why? And what are you going to do about it?
Thank you. Finally, I have Jennifer Fold and Kathy Hansen.
My name is Jennifer Fold. During the October 5th meeting, many parents spoke out against student vaccine mandates and requirements. And before any of you say it's not a mandate, it is. What you have done holds the same weight as a mandate. When you tell children they cannot play sports unless they get vaccinated or test weekly, that's a mandate. Arguing about semantics shows how little you care about this matter. Board members, we are your constituents. We voted for you to represent us. There is a large group of us who are not being represented. Instead, we're being ignored. You are making medical decisions for our children. By abstaining from voting, you are making medical decisions for our children. The only way not to make these medical decisions for our children is to vote against mandates and requirements. Parents should be making medical decisions for their children. The CDC has documented 490 deaths involving COVID of children between ages 5 and 18. There are two key points here. One, since March of 2020, 490 children out of over 56 million have died while being infected with COVID. Think about that number, 490 out of 56 million. Two, the CDC does not track deaths directly caused by COVID. These numbers represent individuals who tested positive for COVID at the time of death. That is not causation. So why are you mandating vaccines for a population that is not at risk? Is it because the state of Maryland received billions of dollars from the American Rescue Plan to implement COVID mitigations? Is it because you think this is an alternative to the ridiculous quarantine policies you have voluntarily implemented? If that's the case, change those policies and procedures. The decision to vaccinate a child against COVID-19 should be up to that child's parents. COVID-19 vaccinations should be a choice, not a mandate or a requirement. Thank you.
Thank you. And on, I believe that's the last speaker. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for coming out. The board felt it very important to make sure we put at least a couple of these opportunities on the calendar to hear what the concerns are of the public at that time. And okay, okay, real quick. Yeah, I mean, all right. Right, everyone was supposed to, okay. Is Tara Beth here? Susan Hobbs? Joyce Toll, Candace Pledger, or Kathy Hansen? Okay. Anyway, I just want to thank you all for coming out. It is, if you are observing, I saw my colleagues as well as myself taking copious notes, and we do appreciate hearing from each of you. And this was, to be clear, a hearing for the board. Dr. Arlotto is not present this this evening because this is the board's evening. But thank you all for coming and for your input. We appreciate it.